Hello everyone. I'm making this video to respond to some questions I got regarding what it was like when we first moved to the States from the UK. A big concern, obviously, for anyone coming is, will I earn enough money initially to support a family? So in our case, it was just me working and with two children. At the time, the children were aged, I think, 3 and 7 or 8, thereabouts. So I was the one working. My pay was, like I said in one of my first videos about moving here, my pay was the same as what a newly qualified nurse would earn. And this was in Arizona. So what the agency does, from what I can see, is they'll push for you to work nights. But this is not uncommon here in the States, that when you first get a job, you're more likely to be offered nights instead of days, because everybody wants to be on days except a few people. So obviously they'll offer you nights, they'll push for you to accept a night shift position, because that means you also earn more money. If you're earning more money, they earn more money. So back to whether you can afford to live on that one income when you first arrive. In our case, we were living in rural Arizona, which the cost of living there was and is still quite cheap compared to many other places. So that meant that accommodation was affordable, food, and anything really, just the things that your basic needs are cheaper there than they would be maybe if you were in a bigger city like in New York or California, etc., etc. I know that many of the agencies will have contracts mainly in the more rural parts of the country, because maybe they're harder to staff for those hospitals. So they work with agencies to meet their staffing needs. So I was making what a new graduate nurse would make. And it was enough to pay our bills. It was enough to have enough money left over to go on trips several times a month. So even though it was in Arizona, it was very close to Las Vegas, because the two states are next to each other. So it was rural Arizona, but the biggest and closest city was Las Vegas. So several times a month, we could afford to drive to Las Vegas, which was about a 90-minute drive away. And we could afford to go there and, do recreational activities. Not gambling, because we're not gamblers, but going to water parks with the kids, going to arcades, going to dinner, just seeing and doing things to rest in between going to work. We didn't have childcare costs because I was working and my ex-husband was looking after the children. So I suppose that's something to think about if you do come with children that are not able to look after themselves. You have to factor in maybe what your childcare costs might be. The hospital that I worked at had an on-site nursery school, so my daughter ended up going to that on-site nursery school just so she wouldn't be bored. And then my son was very quickly enrolled into a school. So you can afford to survive on that one nursing income. Are you going to come and live a very extravagant life when you first arrive? Probably not. You're gonna have to really get to know where you are and what your plans are going forward. So We lived in an apartment when we first got here. Like most of the nurses, there was me and quite a lot of Filipino nurses. And what the agency does is they have connections with people who rent out apartments. So they will just bring you to the apartment office when you arrive, and they find you an apartment. You will tell them how much you want to spend. By then you already have your contract, so you know how much money you're going to be making, and you kind of have a budget in your head. But that budget is kind of, you don't have enough information to make a budget at that point, in terms of what's enough in terms of groceries, what's enough for transportation, etc., etc. So we made the decision to rent, I think it was a 2-bedroom apartment initially, which once we were in it, we just didn't like it. So within about a month, we had moved into a townhome, which was really nice. That was a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. It was brand new, newly built. And we stayed in that for a year. And within a year, we had bought a house there in Arizona. And that mortgage, I was able to apply for that mortgage just using the one salary. By then, my ex-husband was working. So if we wanted to, we could have qualified for a bigger mortgage, but we didn't. So we applied for a mortgage and bought a house within our first year of being here. It was a nice house, nice neighborhood. So that just gives you an indicator of, yes, I was making less money because I was working for the agency, but I was also in a position to be able to buy a house and afford a decent lifestyle at that point. By the time my contract finished and the money increased, obviously your money literally more than doubles the moment you finish that contract with the agency. So what you're able to do immediately changes. In terms of the children, that's another question that I got. How did the children settle in? How did they adjust to the change in lifestyle? They missed their friends for sure. They missed their friends, but then they were also excited to be doing and trying new things. So, we made an effort to take them on trips in nearby cities, exploring, getting to know where, the new country. They made friends at school. And what I find is children will adapt very, very well, especially if you show them that everything is okay. All they want is you, the parent, to show them that we're okay, everything's okay. If they feel a sense of security, everything else will follow. So it depends on how you frame it. If you frame it as a positive thing, they will see it as a positive thing. If you frame it as a negative thing, they'll see it as a negative thing. So yes, the children definitely missed their friends because, at that age, friends are very, very important to children. But they made new friends, and now they're fully integrated. It's 6 years on since we left the UK. They're fully integrated. I think their accents have changed. I don't think their accents have changed, but people tell me, oh yeah, they now sound American, which in the beginning, they still spoke with very British accents. Now they sound American. They've adapted well to the American school system. They've adapted well to making friends here. My daughter doesn't really even remember much about the UK. My son does. So it depends on how you frame it. And also, you have to show them why it's a good thing, why it's a positive thing that you're here. If you show them that you're stressed and you're unhappy, then they're also going to be unhappy. Children are generally happy when their mother is happy. That's what the research says. If your mother is happy as a child, then you are happy. If your mother is stressed and unhappy, then you're unhappy. And so that's what I would say about that, about children. What else can I tell you about the move? I would say, oh yeah, another question was, is it realistic to find a job directly with a hospital as opposed to using an agency? Yes, it's realistic. There are a few hospital groups here in Texas that do sponsor green cards for nurses abroad. They've cut out the middleman, and they recruit directly internationally for themselves instead of using the agencies. I think they noticed that they would save money if they did that, because like I said, my agency was making slightly more per hour than I was making from that contract. So if the hospital cuts out the middleman and they pay you what you're supposed to be paid per hour based on the number of years of experience you have, because your pay is based on your years of experience. So a lot of nurses get a little bit upset about that, especially younger nurses or newer nurses, because newer nurses might come in and say, well, I do this specific skill which that nurse with more experience doesn't do. I should make more money. But it doesn't work like that. The way it works is your pay is determined by the number of years experience that you have. So the more experience you have, the more money you make. It's a scale just like that. And what you find is sometimes nurses with more experience are very happy and settled in their jobs, they're very secure, not trying to go and do everything, like maybe what a new nurse might do. When they first start out, they might be so eager to do everything. I'll give you an example. A new nurse might think, I want to learn how to do ultrasound IVs. And the old nurse will say, nah, I'm okay. I don't want to be that person that everybody calls to come and do an ultrasound IV. So I'm not going to sign up to get that competency. So the new nurse might think, well, I do this skill and that person doesn't do that skill. Therefore, I should be making more money. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. So your pay will be determined by the number of years experience you have. So if you're a person with many years experience, the agency will want you very, very much because they'll make more money from you. But yes, there are hospitals that will sponsor green cards for international nurses. I'm not going to say them in the video because at some point that information might become outdated, because the way hospitals change their hiring practices, that changes quite often. So if you're someone who's thinking of applying directly to a hospital and you want to know what those hospitals are at this time, we are in January 2026, I can share that information if you send me a private message. You can apply directly for yourself. I actually have a cousin who applied directly from Zimbabwe, and she got offered a job and they're working on her green card. She also got a really good offer on the rate that she'll be making per hour. So when she comes, she's in a better position in the sense that her hourly rate is going to be really good compared to what I had when I came, because I used an agency. So yes, you can apply directly. And again, if you want to know those two hospitals that are sponsoring international visas, let me know privately and I'll share it with you, just because in a few months or years, this video, someone might watch it and that information has become outdated. But anyway, even at that point, if you think I might be able to help with that information, send me a private message and I'll share what I know at that time. What else can I tell you about settling in? Oh yeah, so when you first come, the major things you have to consider in terms of how will I work around this when I first arrive. You're in a new country. If you're coming with children, you're thinking about accommodation. You want to be safe. You want to live somewhere safe. So you're going to want to find somewhere safe and comfortable. That's a big expense, your monthly rent. And then transportation. If you're not living somewhere like New York where they have buses and trains like in London, you're going to need a car. So you have to think about, am I going to save up a little bit of money to buy a used car as soon as I arrive? Or am I going to start off using Ubers until I figure out if I want to buy a used car for about 5 to 10,000 or even less? Or do I want to just buy a brand new car? In my case, and I do not regret this, I got a brand new car. Back then, interest rates were not too bad, and I used that as a way of building up my credit, because when you first come, you're not going to have a credit history in the States. So your credit history has to be built up somehow. Buying a car is one way to do it, but I'm not saying it's the best way to do it. It's just the way that I chose to do it. It was also with a lot of encouragement from the agency, because I think they get some kind of kickback from referring you to get those loans. I think the person who was referring us gets some kind of kickback, which is fine. It was my first time to own a brand new car, and I had the reassurance of knowing that I have a reliable car, a safe car for my family and I. And also the fact that we used to take long trips quite often. It was nice to have a car that you knew wasn't going to break down in the middle of the desert as you're driving to Las Vegas, or if you're driving to Flagstaff or wherever you're driving to. So that's the decision that I made. Having said that, when my sister came recently, well, not recently anymore, 2 years ago, she bought a used car, and it's in very, very good condition. Very, very good condition. And she just went to a dealership and she told them what her budget was and told them the kind of cars she wanted, and they showed them what they had. She picked one, she bought one. She's never had a problem with that car. So you can buy a very good used car. So that's an option. Think about saving up a little bit of money to buy a used car when you first arrive, until you figure out what you want to do when it comes to cars. Many people say, oh, buying a brand new car is a waste of money. Well, the way I look at it is transportation is one of my monthly costs. And if I, have to pay for my transportation, whatever it is, I'm paying for it. And I want to drive a comfortable car, that's what I'm going to do. So that's what I did. But having said that, you can also achieve the same thing with a used car. So, you have options. Yeah, so transportation, accommodation. If you have children, then you have to think about childcare. What am I going to do in terms of childcare? Where will the children be when I'm at work? Yeah, that's a big one. And then if you are working for, a lot of UK people I don't think really understand about how the healthcare system works in terms of who pays for your healthcare. So if you're a nurse working for a hospital, or anybody really, most employers will give you benefits. So one of your benefits, in fact, one of the biggest benefits from your employer is your health insurance. So in most cases, how it looks is you pay part of it, like half of it, and your employer pays the other half. And depending on the plan that you choose, you can choose a plan that covers most of the costs up front. So let's say you pay for a plan that's got a very low deductible. So you might say, I only want to pay $500 before my insurance kicks in. So those plans will mean you pay a bit more money per month or per paycheck from your salary. If you want to pay less per month or per paycheck, you can go for a high deductible plan where you say, okay, I want to pay the first $5,000 of my healthcare for the year before my insurance kicks in. So the way I planned mine was when I knew I needed to have surgery that year, I went for a plan that had a low deductible. So my insurance would very quickly kick in to pay the costs. I would only be out of pocket, I think something like $1,000, and then the rest would be covered by insurance. So I had my surgery, and out of pocket, I paid about $1,000, which was nothing. And I had already saved that through my HSA, which is your health savings account. So I didn't have to worry about where will the $1,000 come from. It was already part of my plan, part of my benefits, my health savings account. So I took money out of my health savings account to pay my deductible, and then the rest of the cost of that surgery was paid by the insurance. So I hardly felt anything. And the benefits of being here is there's no waiting lists like in the UK where you're on a waiting list to have life-saving surgery, or maybe not life-saving, but you're on a waiting list to see a specialist or whatever it is they do with all those waiting lists at the UK. You say it's free healthcare, but at what cost? And then now that I know I'm healthy, I don't have any pending procedures or surgery or whatever, I pay less per month intentionally, and I have a high deductible. And the reason I do that is I know that year after year, I'm putting money in my health savings account. And that money stays there, and it's there for any health-related emergencies. So my monthly premium for my health insurance is very, very small. I don't want to pay a lot when I know that I probably don't need to have a procedure or surgery or anything that's big. If I need to go and have anything done that is outside of screening, like routine screening, that's something that you don't pay for out of pocket. If it's routines, let's say you've reached your age for annual mammograms or colonoscopies, anything that's routine or preventative is covered by your premiums. So you're not going to pay anything out of pocket. So you'll just go and have your screening done. Same as your dental. If you want to go and get your teeth cleaned and checked, that's not something you're going to pay out of pocket. It's covered by your insurance. So I just tell myself I'm going to pay the low premiums a month, and then I'll have a high deductible so that if I needed to pay anything out of pocket, I'll take it out of my health savings account, because I've had years to accumulate that money in my health savings account to pay for my healthcare whenever it arises. And that money is mine to use on healthcare for now. Once I reach a certain age, and I'm allowed to invest it also, once I reach a certain age, I can use that money for anything, not just for healthcare. So there are ways around, but I think the biggest thing to note is there are no waiting lists. If you need to see a specialist, you can see a specialist pretty much immediately. And also with some specialists, you can self-refer. You don't have to have your primary care doctor refer you to a specialist to see them. With some of them, you can self-refer and say, I need to see this specialist for this condition, because maybe you already know that that's what's going on. So you can self-refer and get seen by a specialist. I hope I've answered all those questions. I'm going to do another video to cover more questions that have come up. And the reason I'll do these is because people privately ask the same questions. So instead of me writing multiple responses to multiple people, I can just share all the information with everyone here. Again, thanks for watching, and it would be nice if you like and subscribe and share with someone who might find this information useful. And I'll see you in the next one.